You're listening to the Happy Doc Student Podcast, a podcast dedicated to providing clarity to the often mysterious doctoral process. Do you feel like you're losing your mind? Let me and my guests show you how to put more joy in your journey and graduate with your sanity, health, and relationships intact.
I'm your host, Dr. Heather Frederick, and today I am so honored to be hanging out with Dr. Deborah Carpenter. Deborah obtained her PhD in education and is currently an assistant professor at University of Arizona Global Campus, where she serves as the chair of the Faculty Support and Development Committee, as well as a faculty reviewer and mentor within the Department of Education and Liberal Arts. Passionate about nurturing a student's whole self, she is known for her caring approach to teaching entry point courses for undergraduate and doctoral students, as well as in-residence workshops. Deborah, welcome to the show.
Heather, thank you so much for having me. This is a real surreal experience and so exciting. I've been a true fan of your podcast for so many episodes in my journey, and I just want to thank you for the work that you do. I'm so honored to be a part of it today.
Well, and I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I love it when my podcast guests are referrals. And the way you came to be to today's show is that a colleague reached out and said, "Oh my gosh, Heather, you have got to have Deborah on your show. She has so many nuggets of wisdom to share with your audience." So I thought we would start by you giving the listeners just a little bit of background as to how does an elementary school teacher, you're teaching 3rd and 4th grade, find themselves in a PhD program?
Well, thank you, Heather. I will honestly say I never imagined that I would be one to earn my PhD. I'm the daughter of a doctor, but it never seemed to be a good fit for me. I was an elementary school teacher, happily teaching for a number of years, did leave to have my first daughter, and quite by accident, I discovered the world of higher education. I was invited to serve as an admissions counselor, helping adult learners who were interested in going into the field of teaching. And my best friend from college said, you have a teaching credential. You love being a teacher. Who better than to talk to prospective students about being an educator? Well, as soon as I experienced working with adult learners, I really didn't want to go back. I enjoyed that prospect so much, was recruited over to the academic side, and have been working in higher ed academics for going on 22 years now. I had earned my master's degree, but I had no intent of earning my PhD. I could teach at the undergraduate level, but what I noticed around me is that all of my professional colleagues had their terminal degrees. And I really started to have a degree of jealousy where I would be in presentations and everyone would have these impressive initials after their name, but I didn't. And one day, it was after graduation, we were all sitting around with colleagues celebrating, and one of my mentors said, "Hey, Debbie, why aren't you in a PhD program? It's time to start. It's time to get going." And she said it in front of a whole bunch of my professional colleagues. And I remember just shrugging it off and laughing it off, but walking into the parking lot with a close friend saying, "I can't believe I got called out. I can't believe I got challenged to start my PhD. Can you believe that happened?" And my friend turned to me and said, "Well, what if you did though? What if you just got started?" And that really began my journey, is, just embracing the idea of getting started and realizing that there was no perfect time to start. And I realized, because I'd been a faculty member for already a number of years, that it really allowed me to empathize with and to find commonality with my own students. I understood the struggle of what it meant to be in school, but be juggling it with a full-time job and a family and children and other obligations. And what I realized as I was going through the program, particularly in the final year, is I began to appreciate how different it is in the dissertation phase, when you have completed all your traditional coursework and you no longer have that you've got this kind of assignment or these kinds of discussions or whatever the traditional coursework was. It was a time where it was really up to me to chart my own course and to do that, of course, with the help of my dissertation chair. And two things happened in that final year, and that really has prompted me to share what I plan to share today. One of those things is that when I began working with my dissertation chair, and we had an initial meeting about what do you expect of me? What do you expect this program to bring you? How do you want it to go? Which I really appreciated. She also told me about the Happy Doc Student podcast. And she said, there is a podcast I want you to listen to, because I think what you'll find is that there are so many elements in it that will help to support who you are and the way that you will go through the program and how successful you can be. And I've always been a learner where once I subscribe to something, like I want to know what all the tools and resources are that can help me. Like if there is something available, I want to try it. And so when I heard about, here's a podcast you can go listen to when you're out walking. And by the way, being out walking in the fresh air is just such a wonderful way to clear your head and to move forward. And when I realized how much of the podcast was devoted to things beyond academics, yes, the academic part was important, nurturing my mind, but things for my body, things for my heart, things for my mental health, things to help me relax, things to help me organize. I would always share Happy Doc podcast episodes, even to people that weren't in a doctoral program. I really feel like it's more of a happy life podcast, and it just happens to be perfect for doctoral students. But the other thing that happened is that in the final year, you may not have traditional assignments, but what I was asked to do every week is to reflect on the steps that I was taking to move forward in my program. So these were things that I had to share with my dissertation chair. And in the process of doing these reflections, I just started to organically think about how many things go into the writing of a dissertation. And I started to structure it as strong mind, the tasks that I would do that would move me forward in my program, strong body, the things I would do to keep my body and self strong for the journey, and strong heart. How was I going to keep my heart happy so that I could continue to go on with everything that was expected of me and reach my finish line? These reflections started to become very cathartic for me. I would look forward to this once a week time of bulleting these reflections, and they got deeper and longer and more involved, and I felt better. It was like a release to write down these reflections. And my chair said to me, Debbie, you should put these reflections together in a book. You should show people the way that you've decided to structure your own intentional reflection, because I truly feel like this is helping you to complete your program, to move forward. And so this is what I hope to share with your listeners today, particularly students that are in a doctoral program and looking for some inspiration and some tips. I truly believe that making intentional choices about being strong in three key ways, strong mind, strong body, strong heart, will be helpful in helping all of your listeners to reach their finish line.
Well, Deborah, when I started the Happy Doc Student podcast, interestingly, I was originally thinking kind of do just a happy human, right? Like a happy human podcast. But the recommendation I got was, if you've got a niche audience, go niche. And through journaling and reflecting myself, that's when I realized, wow, I really have a passion for attempting to help people go through a process that was largely uncomfortable for me. But when people ask, what is the Happy Doc Student podcast about? I distill it by saying, it's for people who are in a chronically stressful situation and how they can better navigate life, because that's what a doctoral student is, but that's what a lot of people are doing right now. And I think, in the past, higher education has been so focused on this strong mind concept, right? You're in this terminal degree And by the way, for people out there listening that haven't heard that word, it's a terrible word, isn't it?
It sure is. Yeah. I really don't like that, what that conveys. So,
but it's basically saying, hey, there isn't a degree higher than this in your field, right? It may be a PhD in education or an EDD, a doctorate of education, but in any case, little bunny trail there. This idea of helping people navigate a situation so that their body and their heart, some people might call it their soul or their spirit, are strong, because your mind is going to have a very difficult time accomplishing the task at hand if you're tired, if you're sick, if you're miserable, if your social networks are falling apart around you. So on that note, I would love to have you jump into talking about your reflection process and whether you want to frame it as, this is what I would have told Deborah before she started the program, or, just in general to all students listening now, and faculty too, by the way. I think this would be an awesome exercise for faculty to do.
I agree with you. And I think sometimes we need the permission to understand that the elements that are non-academic, the elements that relate to strong body and strong heart, for example, I think that sometimes students might feel like, well, if I'm taking care of those things or doing activities that support those things, I'm flaking. I'm avoiding, I'm procrastinating my academic studies. And what I realize through my journey and through my reflections and through, honestly, something that you said multiple times throughout the podcast, which is all of those behaviors that I'm about to talk about support working on your dissertation. So you used to talk about, when I'm on a walk at the beach, breathing the fresh, salty air, I'm working on my dissertation. And those kinds of comments gave me that reassurance that these things were every bit as important in supporting my journey. But let's jump in, because there's no getting around the fact that this is an academic program. A PhD program is a rigorous, challenging, long journey. And so that can't be sugarcoated. However, I did truly believe that to support my strong mind, it always started with setting my intention for the day. And believe it or not, it started with something as simple as making my bed and organizing my workspace. Because when you begin your day by accomplishing a task, you already feel that you have completed something of importance, and it helps, at least for me, it helped to clear my mind and get ready for the other tasks that I had ahead of me. So that was really important, that my workspace was clear, organized, and that I made sure, and for everyone it's different, you're fitting a doctoral program into the rest of your busy life. Only you can know, as you look at your schedule, where your dedicated time windows are going to be. When you have decided what those are, and for me, it ended up, especially in the real heavy times of research, note-taking, processing of articles and writing, it ended up being my weekends. It ended up being a good chunk of Saturday, a good chunk of Sunday, when I would close the door and be faithful to the time that I committed, that I prioritized myself as a scholar during that time. One of those things that was so important, if you're going to set that dedicated time in your area, you must remove all distractions from the area. And for me, that included my phone, which I will proudly say is nowhere around me in this moment. And it's just not enough to turn off the ringer, turn off the buzzer. It's not enough. If I know that it's within eyesight, if I know that if it's within reach, we all know it just becomes intoxicating to check your phone to see, what am I missing? Who is reaching out to me? And to put that away from my workspace, to go have it charging in my bedroom, for example, helped me to make more efficient progress than almost any of the other distractions that I could have removed.
Can I stop you there? That is a huge tip that comes up. If we were doing a qualitative study on the Happy Doc student, I think the number one distraction remover has to do with technology. And what I have found for me when I started doing that, for just my own mental health, not because, this wasn't happening while when I was working on my dissertation, I didn't even have a cell phone.
Oh, look at you. Right. Now you can say you're lucky.
It's a different world. We had a pager. My husband and I had a pager anyway. Memories. Okay. So if you let people know you're doing this, you don't have to worry, oh my gosh, they might be wondering why I'm not responding to their text. So if you're going to make this commitment to be tech free for these certain hours, let your network know. Tell them, I will be unavailable. I will not be near my phone. My phone will be off. It'll be in a drawer, whatever. So just FYI, and maybe if, there's an emergency, you can give them an alternate number or, a friend or a neighbor's number. Daniel C., one of my previous podcast guests, he suggests the flip phones, the burner phones, the phones where, and you could just use that one for emergencies. I've got kids that live in another state. So if I want to turn off my phone that has all my apps and all my distraction, but or a landline could also work in this case, right? Then only 911 calls are coming through. But I think communication of your intention is so important so your network can support you and you don't have to feel guilty about missed texts or calls.
That is such a great point. And in my tips about strengthening your heart, we'll talk about the network and about how, yes, not only communication is huge, but also just prioritizing, even when you know that maybe you're not going to be able to do the same number of things you've done before because you're making time to insert this doctoral program. But we will talk about that for sure. What I would like to make mention of is the reality that a doctoral program is long. It could be anywhere between 3.5 to 4 to longer, just depending on what barriers you encounter, but it's a long program. And so it's easy with something like that to look out at the horizon and have feelings of overwhelm. I'm going to have to do so many things that are new and unfamiliar and difficult and challenging. And how am I ever going to accomplish it all? And again, close mentor told me, when you are overwhelmed, don't look out at the horizon, look down. Look down and see what is directly in front of you. And what I realized is, no matter how long the doctoral journey is, it's a series of tasks, just one task at a time. So if you think about a program from years to courses to weeks to days, then to tasks, what I would always say to myself when I set my intention is, what are the tasks I need to accomplish today? And I would never look beyond that. But as the very familiar saying goes, bite by bite, you'll eat that elephant. That's what your doctoral program is. It's an elephant, but you're just going to eat it one bite at a time. You can't do more than that. I liken this to training for a marathon. My husband and I have trained for marathons, half marathons. And when you go out there for those training runs, it can feel overwhelming. Like, I have to run 7 miles today. If you think about that finish line, it breeds feelings of frustration and anxiety and maybe exhaustion already. So when I feel like I'm going to do that to myself, I just look up at the very next milestone. Like, there's a fire hydrant up ahead. I'm going to run strong till I get to that fire hydrant. Then I may walk a few paces. Then I'm going to look up and find the next light post. So you can take a long training run and divide it into manageable, short distances that feel good, where you find success. The same thing happens when you complete one task at a time for a doctoral program. I would go to my list of courses, every course that I needed to take to finish, and I printed it out and I posted it where I could see it in my work area. And I took the greatest pleasure in checking off and highlighting each one of those courses as I completed it, because then I had a visual reminder of my journey, of how far I had come. And that continued to fuel my confidence, my feelings of self-efficacy. And I thought, I'm doing this, and I can see the proof right there. Now, in addition to those things, I would say probably one of the most important things that you must do to strengthen your mind is to be willing to embrace feedback and to get uncomfortable. to just trust the process, that you are supposed to be uncomfortable in a program that challenges you, in a program where you're doing new things. You are a learner. And I will remember there are pivotal points in my program. One of them is when I was trying to finish chapter 1 of my dissertation, and it had been unpacked for weeks and weeks, starting with the letter of intent, getting that unpacked and repacked, and then developing that all-important chapter 1 that sets the tone for the whole dissertation. And I was chugging along, feeling really good, getting great feedback from my chair, and it became the point in time where the chapter was sent out to my committee for the first time. And along with that came loads and loads of new feedback that I wasn't expecting or anticipating. Along with that, feedback about the style of writing that I was using and that it wasn't quite yet in alignment with doctoral writing. Now, Heather, I had come from a family of writers. I'd always been told, you're just such a great communicator, you're such a great writer. So to suddenly get that degree of feedback, even when I went in with, oh, I'm always going to take feedback, I'm going to be fun, I felt myself bristle. I felt myself get defensive. I felt the tears come to my eyes. My chair encouraged me, let's talk through this. Let's talk through it on Zoom. And I felt paralyzed. I felt like I couldn't even talk. I was that taken aback by the new feedback that I thought was going to sabotage my entire chapter. And so what did I do? I went and I took a walk, and I can remember, I think I had Happy Doc Student. I'm almost certain I did as I was listening. I remember the point in my walk. I remember the corner of my room where I stopped, hit pause, and I texted my chair. And I told my chair how I was feeling, and that I apologized if I seemed at all not like myself. I was honest about struggling with that degree of feedback. And she said, I see you. I hear you. This is normal to feel this way. This is normal to get this degree of feedback. And so I know how you're feeling, but I want you to trust the process and know that you're going to make it through. There's always a way around it. There's always a way through it. And so I would say that embracing feedback and that discomfort as part of the process, just knowing this is going to happen. And it's okay when it happens, because it means that you are in prime learning mode. Just be honest about how you're feeling. Don't hold it in. Because as soon as I told her how I was feeling, it allowed me to move forward. And I did find a way through. And I developed chapter 1, 2, and 3. And then there was one other pivotal moment that again has to do with embracing feedback. I was getting ready to defend my preliminary oral defense, my POD. And I asked my chair, what happens if I get asked a question that I don't know how to answer? I've done my whole preliminary defense and I don't know how to answer it. She says, well, you might not know how, but the intent is not to trip you up. This is a safe space with your committee. The intent is for these scholars to ask you to consider things that might come up in the study. And what are you going to do if they come up? How might you tackle them? To think about barriers and things ahead of time. So it's not to embarrass you, or we're all in this together. We're here to support you to the finish line. So when she said, prepare to be vulnerable, this is where deep learning lives, I took that upon myself and remembered that through the course of my program. And I must give a shout out to Dr. Jodie Hemerda, because she really helped me to embrace the fact that this was going to be messy sometimes. It was going to be uncomfortable, but to trust the process and to just make sure that I always advocated for myself and shared my struggles along the way. So I truly appreciated that. So those are really the elements when I think about how I supported my strong mind. Those things, taking it, task by task, setting my intention, knowing that feedback and discomfort were part of this. I was supposed to feel that way, and just trusting the process, being honest through the process. Those were ways that I supported a strong mind throughout my doctoral journey.
And it is a journey of 1,000 steps, right? So focusing on just what is my next step? What is my next step? And taking feedback, when it's critical, when it's substantial, and you come from a past, which most doctoral students do, of being highly competent, right? Usually you're the one giving the feedback, and here comes this feedback. It is uncomfortable. And I will link to some episodes specifically about feedback, but also I'm going to link to the episodes that I did with Jodie, your chair, because those are also some gems. And we were talking before we started recording. We'll do another episode with the two of you on together. We'll give a little teaser there to the audience. But all these are fantastic tips for that strong mind. And that's where a lot of the advice ends for doctoral students. But you went on to reflecting about what you are doing to maintain a strong body as well.
Absolutely. And I truly believe that I was able to think more clearly. I was able to be more alert. I was able to process new information that was unfamiliar because I knew that I was doing the things to remove stress from my body, inflammation from my body, and to really just fuel my body with the right kinds of nutrients that would just ensure that I could spend all of that dedicated time and maximize the time to complete each of the tasks that I needed to do. And so that, I know I had mentioned already, going out for a walk to the Happy Doc Student podcast, going out for a walk in fresh air, if you can, if weather permits where you are, is so important because it really activates all the senses. You feel the sun on your skin, you feel the wind, you feel the breeze, you can activate your sense of smell as you pass flowers and grass, fresh cut grass, and just to get out there can really help you to clear your head and get unstuck. I remember, everybody told me, oh, Debbie, once you get through the proposal stage, chapters 1 through 3, 4 and 5, it's all downhill from here. It's a breeze. I didn't personally feel that way. I was really intimidated by the prospect of conducting my own original study and how to write up the results and how to make my results and conclusion look like other people's dissertations that I had seen, that I thought, mine is not going to look like that. It is not going to be legit like that. Well, the teaser, it is. I'm very, very proud of my dissertation, but both times when I felt completely defeated, whether it was a concept like coding I couldn't get, or just how to write up the results with the major themes, when I took a walk and left my chair, took a walk, got outside, by the time I returned, I already had another way to tackle the issue, or I had gotten okay with the fact that maybe I had to take a few steps back and redo something. So, you might be frustrated in the moment, but if you go take a walk, by the time you get back, you're ready to say, okay, I didn't quite have it that first time, and that's all right. I'm going to go back. I'm going to redo. I'm going to reconstruct, and it's actually going to be better. And it was. So I would say taking walks, whether it's walks or runs, whatever is your preferred pace, getting outside is super important. The other things, though, that were important to me, especially being, getting older, we learn about how caring for our muscles is so important. So finding ways to strength train, either with weights at home or with strength training classes, taking Pilates, taking stretching, yoga, deep breathing, all the things that can help you say to yourself, I'm nurturing my body, which is making me a stronger scholar. I'm nurturing my body. And I felt that way. I felt that I'm doing myself the service that's going to help my time in front of the computer be that much more valuable and productive. Along with that, though, is promising myself that I wouldn't fill my body with crap. Excuse the expression, but the things that you eat, staying away from foods that are heavily fried, processed, junk food, sugar, candy, all of those things might give you what you think is that quick energy boost, but that's all it is. So again, for sustained strength, just like it would take you to run a marathon, just like you need to complete a multi-year doctoral program, you need those good nutrients. So that is proper nutrition, lots of fruits and vegetables, lots of protein, lots of water, and hopefully 8 hours of sleep. And I really tried to put myself on a schedule where I would go to bed at 10 and wake up at 6, having that same schedule so that I would optimize my rest. And it didn't happen all the time. And certainly, you will have certain pivotal times that test you because of deadlines and so forth. But taking those steps to really take care of my body from the inside and the outside really helped to strengthen my journey and my ability to move forward in the journey. So that's strong body.
It's interesting because if you ask someone, is there anything more important than your health? And they think about it for at least a few seconds. Everyone says, well, no, because if I don't have my health, I have nothing. I can't perform well in my academics, at my job. I'm not a great partner, a parent, whatever. But it's often the first thing to go. Why? People will say, I don't have time. So I've got episodes on this and why that is a myth. But I love that you shared, count it as working on your doctoral studies, right? I'm going to do some meal prep. I'm counting it as working on my studies. I'm going to move my body. So much research about body movement and cognitive function. You need to be at your most brilliant space. And that's not going to happen sitting for 10 hours at a time. I promise you, it's not going to happen. So I love these tips. And, with the nutrition stuff, I know, guys, it gets hard. Like Deborah said, there's going to be seasons. Have compassion on yourself. If you need to grab a Trader Joe's frozen meal now and again, but stay hydrated. Eat an apple. Like, what one little teeny tiny thing could you do that, again, is providing evidence to yourself that you're taking care of yourself? So I love this. Strong mind doesn't exist without a strong body.
That's right. They go hand in hand.
And you went a step further because you have a little tripod model going on here.
Yeah, I'm glad you said tripod because I really think of this as a 3-legged stool. So the 2 legs, strong mind, strong body. But if you only have those 2 things, your stool is still not a strong stool on a firm foundation. And that 3rd leg and that 3rd part of strength is strong heart. It is such a strong component for me. And I will say that the number one thing that I discovered in 2022 that I continued throughout the latter part of my doctoral journey and that I continue to this day, even though I'm Dr. Carpenter now, is finding gratitude through journaling. And you mentioned journaling at the beginning of the podcast, and I couldn't agree more that this is a way to be intentional about finding the good, finding the valuable, finding what makes you feel grateful to be alive and grateful to be on this journey. I was given a gift in 2022 called the 1-Minute Gratitude Journal. And it's this cute little journal. You can find it on Amazon. And it is one in which you are asked to journal 3 to 5 things that have happened to you within the past 24 hours that you're grateful for. And it specifies 24 hours because it's easy to fall on the things that we maybe always say around the Thanksgiving table, right? My friends, my family, my life, done. Okay, I expressed. But this really allows you to get deeper and more granular in what it is that's happening in your life. And there are days, we all have them, that things don't go well. Days that we are really challenged. And in the doctoral journey, there are times that barriers come up. You think you're going to do a study in a certain way with a certain target population, and all of a sudden, nope, you're not allowed to use that population. What do you do? So it was because I had embraced journaling and finding the good and developing a mindset of gratitude and equating that to happiness, it really helped me. Anytime that I reached a barrier in my program, I expressed gratitude as being of such importance because when you talked about maybe getting together with Jodie and talking about that element, the relationships that you build in the doctoral journey are going to help indicate your rate of progress. So with everybody that I came into contact with, my faculty, my chair, my committee, my student advisor, the administration in charge of the IRB, my research participants, I reached out to everyone by conveying gratitude first. Before you ask for anything, before you ask for clarification, before you need help with something, you've got to let people know their importance to you and your journey, how they are helping you, why you appreciate them. Because when you do that, not only are they more joyful in their roles, do they have purpose in their roles, but they're much more apt to help you. They're much more apt to support you when they realize you rely on them, you appreciate them. So I explain to my own students that you need to approach everything with gratitude, not with defensiveness, not with being bristly. Even when I felt bristly, the next time I reached out to Jodie, I thanked her for all of that feedback and for coordinating it all. And then I apologized if I had come across in a way. And it set the tone for us moving forward in this beautiful way. Something that I hear students say in their first course of their PhD program or in their first in-res workshop is, what if I don't like my chair? What if my chair doesn't have a personality that meshes with mine? What if I need to change chairs? How do I go about doing that? And this is like years before they've even potentially met a chair. And what I encourage them to do is to flip the script and to say, what can I do to be a student that a chair would like to work with? What's within my power to create and sustain a positive relationship? So don't worry about whether you like them. Be more concerned about whether they'll like you and want to work with you and support you, because they have the expertise that you need. They have the knowledge and the experience and the expertise, and they will help you make it through. That's what they've been hired to do. So approach that with gratitude, that you are grateful to have an opportunity to work with them, to learn from them, to grow with them. So just a couple of other points that supported my strong heart that I would encourage is to lean on your network. Now, your network may be your family. They need to know what you're doing and what you're up against. I remember when I needed to go in and have a hug. I needed hugs from time to time, and we all do. But your family, your friends, because not only are they there for you, but they want to hear about your progress. They want to cheer you on. They want to let you know how impressed they are that you've embarked on such a challenging program. And I will say something that I thought when I first started is that I would have to give up all of my friend networks and opportunities. And I remember saying to the program chair, well, I guess I'm going to quit book club. I'm going to let them all know that I quit. There's just no time to read pleasure books. I'm not going to have any opportunities for that. And Dr. Stewart, Kelly Stewart, said, Debbie, don't do that. Do not give up your pleasure reading, because believe me, you're going to be reading so many scholarly articles and reviewing so many things in the database that you want to have that to give yourself a brain break, to have an earned reward so that you have something to look forward to. And you don't want to give up your connection, your fun. That was one of the biggest pieces of advice that I'm so grateful for that I followed. And even in my final year, when there was so much writing involved, there were so many things that I really needed it was time to crack down. There was a deadline I wanted to meet. Even if I couldn't read the book, I went to book club, and I had the friendship, and I had the conversations and the laughter. And yes, I had a glass of wine or two. And I just really enjoyed that break and that opportunity to talk about things that weren't related to my doctoral journey, unless it was being cheered on. So, we talk about earned rewards, and that's something that I think is super important for your listeners to know, is that throughout the time when you're working, it's really important that you schedule breaks for yourself. You might say, these are the tasks I have ahead of me. I'm going to complete the first 2 on my list, and then I'm going to go and enjoy a reward, whether that's a little time scrolling on your social media, or watching a favorite episode of a show, having a conversation with a friend. All of those things are really important, as long as you make sure that you are disciplined in your rewards as well, as long as they are timed as well, because otherwise it's easy for a reward to then become a distraction. So you make a point of earning your reward, and then you time your reward so that you can then go back to your study. You ask my family, and they will say, I remember Mom used to talk about Monday, no fun day. And that's because Mondays were the end of my academic week. And so on Mondays, yes, I was usually getting those last assignments in, those last requirements in. And so we all termed it Monday No Fun Day, and the door was shut and my family knew that. But when I got on the other side of the Monday, that was cause for celebration. So either whether another week was in the books or another course was in the books, that's what I would call it when I was done with a course, we'd have a celebration, whether it was a dinner out or just a time around the table with family or friends, or just allowing myself that time to just say, I've got another course checked off and it's time to celebrate that success in the journey. I would say that really the final thing that is so important for your listeners when it comes to supporting a strong heart is the reminder that nobody understands what you're going through better than someone who's going through it too. And that means finding a friend in your program who can be not only a friend, but an accountability partner for you. So I know with me, I was so fortunate that in my very first course, my friend Tara, and yes, she is my friend, reached out to say, did you finish that discussion question yet? What'd you think of that? What you use for that? What is that? What is that all about? And we started this beautiful friendship that went years and years together, where we held each other accountable for getting our work done, celebrating our successes, working through challenges together, venting sometimes. But it's just so important that you have someone like that, because even colleagues who have completed their terminal degrees and say, oh yeah, I get it. I truly feel like when you're removed from it long enough, you might forget what it's like to be in it. It's kind of like childbirth. Like, you know what it's like when you're in it, but then a couple of years later, you're like, oh, maybe I'm ready to have another baby. You forget what all of that is. And so I think for your listeners, if you can find someone in your program that you can swap cell phone numbers with, that you can talk to outside of your program, that is going to be instrumental in just helping your heart to be happy, helping you to know that you're not in it alone. There are other people going through these similar challenges, and that always seemed to ease my heart.
Deborah, everything that you share are not just nice ideas, but backed by research. We know peer support is related to finishing a doctoral program on time. And you're right, there's no one who can commiserate with you quite the way a peer can. Your family will try their hardest, but they won't know what it's like. You might want to share this episode with them, give them a little insight, but find that peer. I'm also a huge fan of reward systems. I still use them now. I might say something like, well, Heather, if you read this policy manual, you get a kombucha, right?
Yeah. You deserve more than a kombucha for that.
Kind of ritualizing things, but create these rewards and maybe bring in a friend, right? So that you're not letting your networks go. You want them there when you finish. So to think, I'm going to put a pause on all my relationships, and in 4 or 5 years, think that you're going to be able to pick it up where you left off. Guys, that's a whole nother episode. But I remember I had goals for myself, and if I did a certain number of hours on my dissertation, I would go see the Tarbox Ramblers, play at the Burren in Kendall Square. So I had this thing that I looked forward to, and it was huge. In fact, I almost dedicated my dissertation to them, but I wasn't sure how that would go over with my very traditional committee, so I didn't. But Tarbox Ramblers, if you're out there listening, I do a tribute, finishing with sanity intact, because I got to, hear live bluegrass music every week. And the gratitude practice stuff, again, tons of research. You guys, you might just want to, when you're sitting down, before you open up that Word doc, take a couple deep breaths and jot down the 3 things right then and there to just shift the energy of how you're approaching the task at hand. Or before you send that email, when you're frustrated and you're heartbroken or you're angry or you're overwhelmed. These are tips that can absolutely change your experience of the process. And Deborah, I'm so grateful again that I had you on. I can't wait to have you back.
Oh my goodness. I would love to be back. Like I said, it's a little surreal here. Heather, you're a celebrity in my heart and in my eyes. So to be here with you today, it's a true joy, a true honor.
Well, ditto. And before we wrap up, you know my drill here. Do you have a favorite quote or some final words of wisdom you want to leave with the audience?
I absolutely do. And, when with my gratitude practice and journaling, I come across quotes all the time. And, and I'm always thinking to myself, what could I choose? What could I choose? Actually, something that came across my path the other day is, I think, probably the best and most inspirational quote when it comes to the doctoral journey. And it is a quote by the Roman poet Ovid, who said, "Dripping water hollows out stone, not through force, but through persistence." I truly feel that persistence in the doctoral journey is what gets you to the finish line. And one of my trusted mentors, Dr. Alan Belcher, who I miss so much and love working with him, he told me at the beginning of my journey, earning a PhD doesn't mean you're smarter than anyone else, Debbie. It means that you have the persistence to make it through the end. And so that dripping water, each drip is like a task on the doctoral journey. It's a long, rigorous, challenging journey. It's not unlike a marathon. A marathon, you take one step at a time, and a doctorate, you take one task at a time. But I truly think that if you think about the elements of strength, strong mind, strong body, and strong heart, if you look down, if you crank it out one task at a time, if you're intentional, if you practice self-care, and if you express gratitude to everyone you interact with along the way, including yourself, it will get done and you will reach your finish line.
Deborah, again, thank you so much for today. That was perfect.
Thanks, Heather.
Thanks so much for listening, and I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. Until then, if you're looking for more ways to invite joy in your journey, check out the free resources at expandyourhappy.com. You'll find downloads like an article I wrote titled, "The Doctoral Journey, 12 Things You Need to Know That They Probably Won't Tell You." You'll also find a PDF that organizes all podcasts by the 7 steps detailed in the Happy Doc Student Handbook, which you can also find on the website. Finally, if you're looking for a Happy Doc Student swag, I've got that too. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and YouTube channel, and if you want to make my day, rate and review so that together we can change the way doctoral education is delivered and experienced. Hey, one more thing. Just a quick reminder that the information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only.